The triceps make up roughly 2/3 of the upper arm. So naturally, if you want massive arms, you should be focusing on those triceps. And while compound movements like overhead presses and bench presses hit those triceps hard, if your goal is to maximize your growth, you're going to need to focus on some isolations as well. But for triceps, the specific exercises, they can be a bit tricky, with having literally hundreds of options of cable press downs, overhead extensions, and fancy tricep exercises. This can make it easy to just assume that you can do a couple sets of press downs at the end of your workout. But if you want real tricep mass, you're gonna have to incorporate some isolation movements that you can lift some heavy weight on. And the Easy Bar Skull Crusher is, in my honest opinion, the #1 tricep isolation movement for mass. Now, we can get into the science. We can talk about which exercise biases specific heads of the tricep and which exercise will see the most muscle activation. But that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about why an isolation movement like the Easy Bar Skull Crusher is such a beneficial exercise for tricep mass. When you train the triceps with this movement, you're training the triceps in a very strong position, making this movement specifically an exercise that you could handle a large amount of weight on. And when constantly exposing the triceps to heavy loads, you're not only building muscle, but significant strength increases that transfer over to every other exercise. When you train the skull crusher specifically, you're moving the bar in a similar horizontal path that you would when bench pressing, without the assistance of the pecs or the front delts, making it, in my opinion, one of the best assistance exercises for a massive bench, or for that matter, any pressing exercise that you do. The bottom line, you can get very strong on skull crushers. And that strength transfers over to bench presses, overhead presses, or any presses you do. Not only that, but anyone who's very strong on skull crushers is usually very strong on every other tricep exercise they do. That strength ability will translate to heavier loads used for higher reps. In short, that means getting even more growth potential out of every additional exercise that you perform. You can't say that about every other exercise. I've never seen a guy who does only tricep kickbacks, yet has a massive close grip bench press. So not only is the Easy Bar Skull Crusher an excellent exercise at building strength and transferable strength, but of course, it's also extremely effective at targeting the triceps directly. The range of motion on the exercise allows for a full stretch of the triceps at the bottom and a full contraction at the top. The only exercise with a slightly better stretch component of the lift being the overhead dumbbell extension, the Easy Bar Skull Crusher still surpasses it in its benefits in my opinion. And to get even more out of this exercise, you can focus on bringing the elbows back, lowering the bar to the top of the head or slightly behind it, and when pressing the bar, keeping it slightly behind the head rather than directly over it. This keeps the tension on the triceps, especially at the lockout. And while someone might make the argument that skull crushers, especially heavy ones, are notorious for elbow pain, I've been doing them for low repetitions of 5 to 10 reps at a time for 20 years now, without any real issues. And my personal recommendations for elbow pain on these are, first, make sure your elbows are completely warmed up before performing this movement. You can either place skull crushers as the second or even the third exercise in your tricep routine so that you have plenty of blood in the muscle and the joints are warm. Or before doing the movement, you can even do a few sets of low weight, high repetition cable extensions. That'll get the synovial fluid into the joints and the muscles warm. You should also experiment with different techniques on this lift, like bringing the bar down to the nose or the forehead or even behind the head. You can adjust the angle of the bench and perform them flat or with a slight incline or slight decline. The biomechanics experts might tell you otherwise, but there's no optimal way to perform a skull crusher other than getting into a comfortable position and training that movement with a full range of motion. So if you're not already incorporating heavy Easy Bar Skull Crushers from 5 to 15 repetitions in your training, I highly recommend you incorporate them and watch as the strength and mass of not only your triceps, but your entire upper body improve. And if you want the exact training programs that I recommend that were built using proven old school bodybuilding methods, check out my mass gain programs down below. And as always, if you guys want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.